Hi, everybody. Welcome to Teaquilts. Today, I am going to be sewing mosaic blocks or charm blocks. Not charm blocks. Hold on, I have to get my volume down. Just a minute. Okay, let's try this again. Welcome to Teaquilts Sew Live. Today, I'm actually working on some crumb blocks, or what I like to call mosaic blocks. So I will just wait for some people to enter. And now I'm just trying to pull this up on my iPad so that I can hear the comments when they come. Okay. I'm just waiting for some others to join the chat room. I see I have one other person here. Okay. So I am just working on some scrappy blocks here and just doing them in the crumb style, or what I like to call mosaic style. And then we'll just be having any discussion that we like to have in the discussion box, in the discussion or chat box. And I can answer those questions as well. I'm using my wooden arm to press my seams open as I go. I'm just stalling, trying to wait for more people to enter the chat room. Let me check and make sure. Okay. If someone else, can you post something in the chat box just so I can see it? Okay. Let me go back over here and say edit. Okay, welcome to the live broadcast. I think before I had this on private, so it wasn't showing up. I don't know how that happened, but now the chat box should be open. You can go ahead and do your sign ins for shout outs. Just waiting for a few more people to come into the chat room. Okay, today I'm actually working with mosaics or crumb blocks, as I like to call them. I had used this in another project, so I'm just making it into a crumb block as well. And I have started quite a bit, and I'm just going to wait to actually start at the beginning. So if you are wanting to let me know live who you are that's on the chat, please put information in the chat box, and I will be going through those shortly. I actually did a video on how to make crumb blocks. And every now and then I still get a few questions posted. So I just decided that I needed to make some charm blocks for my scrap quilting club. So I'm just going to sew some of these today. And I'll show you what I'm actually working with or what I'm making at some point in the video. So go ahead and post inside the chat box if you'd like for me to do your shout out. I'd like to know who's out there. I appreciate you watching. My blocks are a pretty good size. I'm trying to make them at least 11 inches so that I can square them up to 10 and a half. But I actually started from inside, just piecing little random scraps together. And I've got various different strings in different places. So I'm pulling from different spots to sew from. So I need some longer strings now because my blocks are getting a little bigger. I see we have Lauren. Hi, Lauren. Thank you for coming back. So I've already used this strip on here already, so I'm not going to use that one next. And I need to square off my edge. So my last week, what have I done since we last chatted? I have been doing a lot of prep. I actually had my small group. It was my turn to host. They came to my house. So last week we spent actually doing a lot of cleanup so that they could have places for them to perform their work. Um, see, after that, so I did a lot of cleaning during the week, shopping, cooking. We prepared lunch for each other. So I have to have those things in place before they come. So I did a lot of prepping for that. And then I did a lot of work for my scrap quilting club. We meet the last Saturday this month. So I was getting out a lot of emails for the year, for the startup year. And that was a lot of work because we do a year-long project. And then I also gave them January and February's project to do. And I'll be showing you in a different video me working on some of the year-long projects. And I'm also going on a retreat this weekend, so I've been prepping for that. And then in the process, I do plan to make a video. Someone asked me if I could do a video about how to pack for a retreat. So I'm going to be doing that hopefully tomorrow. Let's see, what else? Oh, yesterday. So Sunday night, I actually planned, not Sunday night, Monday night, I planned for yesterday because I had a lecture at the Circle in the Square Quilt Guild. I'm hoping I got the name right. It meets in University City in Missouri. So I actually did the strings and mosaics at their guild meeting. That was fun. Let's see, what else? I have my ruler here so I can measure to see how wide I have things. So I know how much I need. I can cut. Let's see. So I'm not getting a lot of questions today. Are you all just watching me sew? I only have a few people in the chat room today. But after I sew this long strip, I'll just start at the beginning and show you how I started making these blocks. I'm working on a project where I need about 49 of these blocks. So I will be making these for a while. I have about 10, 11, 12 of them completely done and squared up. Okay, so what I have on this side of my machine over here is when I trim, I keep little pieces that I might want to use again. I don't have to use them. I might decide like this piece here is too little. I can get rid of that. Anytime I trim as I'm working this process, then I start a little stack over here. And I use these to start my new strip set. So I am just going to get a medium sized strip. Let me back up and just tell you what I've kind of done. I've kind of put like very small pieces in here that could be added onto these, or I can take a long strip like this, and then I can take all of my little pieces that are sitting here and just chain piece those onto here. So let me get started with that. So I just pick up any random piece. Don't worry about the shape. I just lay one side onto the strip, and the strip isn't cut perfect. They are leftovers from other projects. And I just put them on here and abut them and just keep sewing. So again, I have a piece that's way too little. Put it in the trash. With this method, though, I hardly have any waste. I have a pan on here. If you're in the chat box and want to leave any kind of comments or questions, you feel free to do so. I'll answer those as well. I'm just sewing today. I'm actually prepping some stuff for our scrap quilting club. So have that in the chat box and I can answer any questions. That piece is too little. And now I've got this entire string sewed. So let me just take off my big block for a second. And I like to keep chain piecing. I don't like to break my threads. So I'll just find something else to sew together. I'll just take two of my pieces and sew them together. What they look like, if they match up, we can always trim it after the fact. So I'm always making new ones as I'm sewing. So now this is what I have now. And I'm just going to finger press these open. I'm actually using my wooden iron. And then I will cut these apart. I had a smaller ruler. Here it is, it's hiding. Go back and cut these apart. And while I'm cutting, I will make sure that I give myself straight lines to work with. And by straight, they can be diagonally straight or they can be perpendicular straight. They don't have to be like straight across. I'm just giving myself another angle that I can lay onto the next strip. And I just do that all the way down the strip set to get all of my pieces removed. And then my little trimmings, I just put those into the trash. So it's very minimal waste here. So I've got all of my pieces. I just move them back to the sides. And then I just get another strip and I start laying these pieces on top. And I do like having my knee lift on so that I can lift things up easily. Then I might do 3 of them where I just added these fabrics together, and then I'll switch out so that all of my blocks don't have the same color combination at the beginning. And now I'm just going to go to some other ones that I have laying here. Like I've got this piece here that was sewn from another strip set. This was trimmed off of another block, and I didn't have any height left because it was on it at an angle, so I just saved it. So hardly anything is wasted with this technique. I'm looking for a little one because I'm almost down to the end of my strip set. And now I have on this strip sewn all of those units together. And I need to clip off my little starter piece. And this is what it looks like. And it's not straight at all. Doesn't matter. I just take one end and square it up. And I have a different color. I got something I was using when I was strip piecing. It was left over, so I'll use it as well. I have a straight edge. I can hang this piece on so that I can get my other one off. And then once I take this off, I can start adding them onto this piece. So I'll just cut a few of these off. Please let me know who's watching. I'd love to say hi to you. I appreciate you all watching. I know I didn't have a topic this week, so I don't have a lot of people in the chat room today. So I would love it if the few that are there, leave me a comment. So now this is how it looks after I kind of just pressed it with my iron. And again, I'm just going to go ahead and cut off a few of these so that I can run them on my strip that's in there now. So I've got a few of them off. And just keep sewing them onto my strip sets. And then eventually they'll get to a particular size or say that I'm collecting a lot of scraps, I'm using smaller pieces, then I will do a different technique. I'll show you that in just a minute. So here is one piece that I've been working on for a while. I'm just going to add and slide it through. The only thing about this making crumb quilts and string quilts is that you do make a mess in your work area. You have a lot of strings. You tend to miss your wastebasket a lot because you're dealing with such small pieces. But it's a great way to use over things when you know what to do with. And I consider these to be free quilts because you don't have to buy anything. Okay, so now I've got all of that sewn onto this strip. I'm just going to leave this on here right now. Hi, HC. I forgot your name. I'm blocking it right now. I know you told me last week, but welcome back. Now, my black blocks get a particular size, and I need to start measuring to see what size they are. And that's why I have the longer ruler here. When my block, as my block gets bigger, it's bigger than the 8-inch ruler that I have here. I have to switch out to this longer ruler. And I like it because it's thin, but it goes to 18 inches. So I'm making blocks that are at least 11 inches. And so I just start laying my ruler down. And then on this one, I'm just a little over 9 inches this way. And right under 9 inches the other way. So I need at least a strip on each side so I can keep working with this. When I get them to a particular size, I might start trying to find strips that are very similar to that size. And I can put it anywhere. I'm going to put it back on this other side. It may look like I'm doing more of a log cabin style once I do my center, but you can actually put your strip sets anywhere. And I'll show you some of the blocks I have on my wall when I get a few of these done. So I can actually cut anywhere. And this is where I have the little small pieces that I can then sew together and start some other blocks with. So when my blocks get this size, I may flip to where I'm only working with 1 or 2 blocks at a time at that point, because I just want to get those big ones out. So I've been kind of working with a few large ones that I put aside when I first went live. So this is 10 inch one way, and it's about 8.5 the other way. So again, I have pieces over here that are about the size that I need. So I just use that. I go ahead and just cut off the extra piece because right now I'm at the point where I want to just make blocks. I can come back and use those smaller pieces later. Hi, Mary from California. Thank you for watching. Got Ann S. She's from KC. Welcome. So I just added that piece on. I'm checking to see if it's 10.5. I still can add a strip either way. So now I'm just going to get me a straight line on the side when you're making these blocks, you can go around the block if you like, but you want to switch it up a little bit so it doesn't look like you're trying to make log cabin blocks. Sometimes I have fat pieces and I'll put those on the edge because when I square the block up, it'll take some of that off and then I'll recycle what I didn't use back into my scrap collection. When I first start making the string blocks, I pull out about a shoebox size of strings and then I use those until they're gone and then I go back and add more as I go along. That way I'm always adding in new fabrics and then I just use that handful of fabrics until I run out of larger pieces to use and then I go and get more. So again, I'm at the point where my block is getting bigger. I'm measuring. This block is now 10 inches wide, so it still needs another strip. So it's about 10 inches square all the way around. So now I just need one final strip on each side. So I'm just going to go to the opposite side. I want to go around and around every time. I'm going to go on the opposite side, add a strip, and then add a strip on the top of that. So HC is commented, said, I've seen people making those quilts and love them. Some sew the fabric to batting and some don't. Does one method have an advantage over the other? On crumb blocks, if you're sewing it to the batting and you're doing more of a quilt as you go, maybe that's why they were sewing them to batting. Since I went to a method to make my quilt top. So that's the advantage of sewing it to batting. When you actually get to sewing those blocks together, you've already got the batting in between and they're already quilted as you're making those seams because you're stitching in the batting. So that's why they're doing that. And I need one more on the width. Cut me a straight line. And when I say straight line, I'm just looking for a straight line to sew. It doesn't have to be perpendicular to anything. I just want a straight line. So this block is not square at all. I'm just haphazardly cutting and adding pieces as I go. Make sure this piece is 11 inches at least. Yes, because it's a little bit shorter than my block, so wanted to make sure. My fabric is going up onto my computer, my laptop keyboard. So I need one more on this at least to make 11 and 10 and a half inches the other way. Now I'm a little bit shy on this corner, but when I put 10 and a half in other places, I can get it. So the first thing to do is to get me a straight edge on this bottom. I'm going to go ahead and add my bottom strip. I'm a little bit short here because this strip wasn't the same width all the way down. So I'm a little bit short from about here out. But first, I'm just going to go ahead and sew what I need on this bottom first. This is a messy project. You've got stuff everywhere, but I still love it. I got one more piece here on this bottom, and then hopefully it will be enough. I thought my other strip would be enough, but it wasn't straight all the way down. Anybody have any questions or comments? Please leave them down below. Let me know if you did any sewing today. So now I have my pieces on here. I can take my ruler and measure to make sure I got at least 10 and a half. I got over 11 that way and over 11. So once I do that, I just get them into the pile I have somewhere else. So you want to, HC is saying she has so many questions. Just ask away. I don't think that you can still use the couching foot and use the rulers. I think when you buy the ruler foot, they give you a new base that's thicker. And I don't know that for sure because I haven't purchased this since I don't need that for my home machine right now. But when you use rulers on your machine, they give you a different connecting piece that goes on your machine, and that foot is higher so that it doesn't jump over the rulers that you're using. So I wouldn't use a ruler with a couching foot or any of the other feet that you already have for your machine because I don't think that they're thick enough so that it won't jump over your ruler. Most of the people that are using that, you're mostly free motion quilting. So if you're moving stuff and you're going over this, going along the side of the ruler, you could jump up on that ruler and that would be very dangerous. So I don't recommend it. So now I just need to get my block off so I can measure it. So then I'll just take, I got this piece here, and I told you I have like other little pieces. I got pieces everywhere. So I need a piece from my box now, because these are where my smaller pieces are. This was a piece I used in the memory quilt that I just made for the lady last October. So I'm just trying to find something that's about the same length as what I'm trying to sew, so that way I'm not losing a whole lot of my previous sewing. And I just want to chain my piece onto that, just so I can get it off. And while I'm doing all of that, I'm still making blocks or adding a piece on as I'm going. Where's my, I lost my wooden arm. That's the other thing. Things get covered up quick with this method too. I have a lot going on, and then I had to move stuff because I got the laptop sitting here. So I'm not used to working in this space right now. So again, I measure my block with my ruler. I got over 10 and a half, and I'm still short this one where this fabric was a little thinner right here. So all I'm going to do is take a piece of fabric, just any scrap. I don't know if I'm going to put black because I'm using black as my stashing. Let me find something else. So I'm just going to take a piece right off this end where it's short, and then I'll have just enough to finish this block. Just adding pieces. I just hate to break my thread if I don't have to. Only time I break it is when it's not stitching correctly or if my bobbin is out. Otherwise, I try to keep my machine with something under the needle. So now I just got this corner I just sewed on, hoping you can see that. And then when I press that open, I'm hoping that I can now get my 10.5 out. Yep, it's at 11 now. So it's pretty good. And I just had to sew a little piece. I didn't have to sew the whole side and waste an entire piece of fabric, just make it larger where I needed to. Okay. So any questions about the piecing process? I still get a few in my private email, so that's why I'm here sewing them today. Oh, I think you emailed me about your baby quote and I forgot. Yes, you did. And I forgot to respond. When I got it, I wasn't able to respond when I read it. So when I have a quilt that have particular colors, I will go with more of a neutral color and I will just use one color of thread. I know you were talking about, you mentioned that your husband was saying put yellow in the border, and I usually just use a neutral thread. I probably would pick the gray because when the gray gets into the other colors, it's not going to overwhelm that quilt. That's what I would personally do. I have used gray when I first started quilting a lot because I didn't have the money to buy all the thread colors. So I ended up purchasing like gray, cream, white, and I bought this very light blue, like a light 16 blue, I think is what it's called. Those were my colors, and I used those colors in every quilt. And it was amazing to me how the gray and the blue just blended in with all the other colors, even in a busy scrap quilt. So it will work with your baby quilt. So now I'm just back to the strip set that we started with. I'm just going to cut off some pieces. I do have other big pieces here, but I just want to do a little bit more of the process. I hope that answered your questions. Just looking to make sure nothing else is in the chat box. So when I'm cutting these off, as I'm trimming, I'm making sure that one end is straight. I'm not worried about the other end that's on the strip set. I'm just cutting off one end is straight because I can only sew one end at a time anyway. So I even have weird oddball shapes, and I'll just go around that. And then as it starts to get bigger at some point, I will start to square them off. So I kind of have something that looks like this to show you some of my oddly shaped pieces. This is one that I was working with when I first started sewing. So they're not all going to be square. They're going to look very weird. This one here is another one that's a weird shape. So all I got to do now is just start adding pieces up here to build this up on the sides. And I'll just cut a straight line when it's time to add them. Someone gave me this fabric that had all of these spaces in it. That's pretty cute. So I've added those into a block. Here's another weird shaped one. I had some kind of triangle thing going on in the middle, and then I just added some half square triangles that I had cut from something else, maybe full border somewhere, and I saved all of that and used those. So I have a stack of half square triangles. I will use the little ones too, but most of the time, the little half square triangles that I have go into the string blocks that are pieced on a diagonal. They just but yeah. Lauren is asking, do I press all of my pieces before sewing? And I know a lot of people don't, but I do. It gives me, if they're wrinkly, I go ahead and put some more of my homemade best press in them to give them a little bit more starch. And then they're straight. And then you can see as I'm folding my blocks over, I'm not dealing with all of these wrinkly edges over here. Everything is nice and flat. I don't have to worry about puckers. And, it's just a nice flat block. And I can easily measure this as to something that's wavy out here and I'm trying to get a measurement. So yes, I do tend to press my strips before I use them. A lot of people do not, and that's just one of my own personal preferences, just how I like to work. So you can decide for yourself if there isn't a right or a wrong way, actually. Found a piece that needs to be trimmed here. So yeah, that's about it as far as technique with these. She was helping me out to know that Lauren had asked a question. Okay. So you're very welcome. Glad I was able to help. So again, I just take pieces. I'm back to with a long piece. If I've got some pieces that I know need to be built up, let me see if I can find something that's kind of like similar in size. I got so many different sizes here. So like if I have these pieces, I can even connect these pieces to make a larger piece. So let me do that instead. So if I know I want to connect these two pieces, I know I got to build up this other side to do so. So I'll just start sewing pieces onto here. And at the beginning, I can even add something. Dropped on the floor this time. This is reality sewing. You're asking about the homemade best press. If you go to my homepage and search for starch, I have a video that give you all of the different ways that I make and use starch. So I just want to sew some small things because I want to get my piece off that I'm working on just for this demo. So I'm just going to sew approximately sized pieces. And this is how I use my smaller pieces. I don't do everything off of the large strip set. I will start that way if I don't have any blocks already made. But by the time you make 5 or 6 blocks, you've got enough startup pieces to probably work the remainder of your quilt. So I just added this one piece. It's still not quite long enough, or I could sew it and then trim, but I don't want to trim off, so I'll just find something there. So I got this piece here that I cut off of another block. I think I might save that and add it as a whole long piece. See, I changed my mind. This one here is a little bit shorter, so I will use this one instead. It's not going to be usable in that little skinny part anyway. Need something else to sew on. This one's not big enough. I haven't looked in the chat box in a minute, guys. Trying to get my two pieces sewn here. Okay, so these should be very similar in size at this point. So now that's something that I probably can sew together. But what I want to do is sew a separating strip in between. So if I put these here and I measure 10, so got to remember, I mean, it's a little over 10. They're just laying side by side, so that doesn't include the seam allowance. So maybe I might want to put something just a little bit wider than this in there because I am going to be using seams. So I just want to get something that's a little wider. Cut it to the approximate size I need. And I just need to get straight edges on both of these, and then I can sew those two together, and I know the width will be right. And then I just have to work on the length the other way. So, and this is still fun sewing for me because it's kind of like these were how our ancestors made quilts, and we've kind of gotten away from that using all of the patterns. So there is no pattern, you just sew. It was funny to me how the quilts of G's then became very popular, and those were people that were just making quilts to keep warm. So again, I'm not cutting anything perpendicular or at the right angle. I'm just angling out so that I can sew my next piece on. So now I have this piece here sewn, and now I can add this other piece on, and my block will be about 10 inches wide, or I mean 10 and a half. It's closer to 11 probably. I need to be able to cut 10 and a half. So if you were making blocks that were going to finish at 6 inches, then you would probably be using one of your 6.5 inch scrub ruler as your marker for measuring. As long as it covered the ruler, then you were ready to add your next piece. So I just get that off. So I've been just sewing on this piece here, and they just grow with every little stitch you add. They just get bigger and bigger. And so now when I take this off, I'll look at the comment section in just a minute. This is how you can connect to smaller pieces that you sewed. So that way it definitely doesn't look like a log cabin style block at that point. And sometimes when I get them to this point, I might like to go to my big iron to press them as well, just to flatten them out a little. But for the most part, they hold up until I can get to my 10.5 inches. But this is what I have so far. And now all I got to do is add to top and bottom, or if I just wanted to add to one side, I could do that as well. You don't have to be real these blocks. The more random they look, the prettier they look. And Lauren is asking me, she says that I mentioned the number of blocks. What size is this quilt that I'm working on? I'm actually going to make 49 blocks for the quilt that I'm working with, and it's going to be set in a 7x7 setting. I'm still surprised. Somebody mentioned that they're waiting on their scraps to get larger. I'm just surprised when I hear that people don't have scraps. It seemed like I had scraps coming out the gate day one making quilts. And when I'm working with a project and when it's finally completed, when I cut the binding and everything, I'll then go ahead and cut those into other shapes and or I'll cut them into strings. So that's how I already have a lot of my stuff already done. I'm to the point now where if it's like an inch or less, then I'll go ahead and pitch those. I'm keeping stuff that's at least an inch and a half wide. And if my strings get way out of control, then I may not collect save anything for a while. I might just bag them up and give them to somebody else because you can do a lot with these. Like I said, I start with a shoebox size and then I work my way out of that shoebox until I don't have any larger pieces and I go back and get larger pieces as needed. But yeah. Um, do you all want me to show you what I'm working with? I can do that. I'm actually squaring said blocks up. I have them on my design wall. Um, Kind of do some stuff. So I can move my laptop. Let's go. I'll be gentle. I'll try. So on my design wall at the top, and I'm holding it so it's not very steady. I'm hoping you can see that my sashing has polka dot fabric, but it's really a white fabric with a black circle, and then there's a color in the middle. And the colors are green, red, purple, and that's it, I think. But I'm using it anyway. But I also framed my blocks with a 1/2 inch black with white frame. So that's what I'm actually working with. And those are the 11 that I have on my design wall. I'm also working on my counter that needs to be squared up. Yeah, Lauren says she has a lot of scraps. I mean, they just don't go away. And if you don't make some kind of quilt where you can use them, either be a string or a charm, where you can do something with them quickly, then you really, they just keep growing. They don't go away. Even with the number of quilts that I make, I still pull most of my fabrics from my scrap bin. Thank you, HC. I appreciate that. So I'm just getting some more longer pieces so that I can add to my block. Let's see what the width of this is. It's approximately 7 inches. So I'm going to sew 2 strip sets together and then sew those onto my block. So there are no rules. You just make them up as you go. Anybody want to talk about what projects they're working on? And then the question is, what quilting pattern am I going to use? When I'm assuming she's talking about for this quilt. I have no idea. But when I do a lot of things that have a lot of straight piecing, then I tend to use something that's curvy. If I was stitching on my home machine, I would just use the serpentine stitch where I would enlarge it and just do wavy lines going horizontal and vertically through the quilt just to anchor it. You don't have to do a whole lot with these quilts. I have some of these quilts that are very old that I did in my lecture yesterday. And my husband's is the oldest. It's the first quilt I made. And it was in the first string quilt I made. It was in 2001. And it's been washed. You can tell by the fabric that it's very loved, but all of the fabrics have held up and they're doing very well. So no, I wouldn't. The quilting doesn't matter as much. That one you can keep your feed dogs up, and then it's not such a chore. And she's saying she started on a 9-patch block. It's easy and simple. Yes, it is. Just got to know your quarter inch seam. So I just have another little smaller strip set here. I'm going to sew on to get my long piece off. So normally I work about 5 blocks at a time until they get really big, and then I just start working 2 blocks to get them to completion. Anybody else want to share what projects they're working on? I only got 2 of you talking to me today. Anybody have ideas for future topics on the live chats? I thought about next week maybe doing your favorite rulers, be it for cutting or for long arm quilting, or as of now, regular machine quilting, because they're now making the rulers for those machines as well. So now I'm just going to add this double strip set that I made to the bottom of this block. And then when I go to press these blocks, I put some spray sizing or spray starch, anything you want to use. I put that in between these blocks. I spray that on these blocks and then I let it sit for a little bit. It can penetrate the fibers. And then I come back about 2 minutes later or so, and I'll go ahead and press them before I square them up. That way I don't have to worry about any of my stretching or moving a lot. I don't pull and tug on my blocks so they don't tend to stretch because I watch how I press, and when I cut, I also use a rotating mat. I use a square rotating mat. I have a curved one here. If I was doing 6-inch blocks, then I would use this. But if I'm doing 10.5-inch unfinished blocks, it won't lay flat on here all the way around. So I want to go to another surface. If you don't have a rotating mat, you can use a smaller mat that will hold your block. and just spin the mat itself instead of the mat turning on its own. You can just spin it. I'm concentrating on what I'm doing here. Uh-oh. I lost my sight. I'm still live, but something happened where my screen disappeared. Just a second. Okay. So I'm trying to figure out the best way to put this piece on here so I can get my block that I want to show off. Okay. So now I didn't measure this. I just added on a piece. And so now this is what I have. The next step is the length. I can tell by looking at it that it's not the right size, but I have tools I've already paid for, so I may as well use short. So if I'm adding in seam allowances, I want to make sure I add something that's at least an inch and a half on here. So now I'm looking into my pound where I have the strips, trying to find something I haven't used that's wide enough. That's the problem. I don't know if this is an inch and a half. Let's see. It's a little bit shy of an inch and a half. If I have to add another one, I will. And we'll put this one this time on the opposite end. I see some comments. I'll get to them in just a second. So now I need to sew this onto something. Just start another little smaller strip set. And I actually save a lot of time by making sure something is under my needle. I'm always prepping some next seam or something, next part of a project. So if you're breaking your thread, just stop it. You're also wasting thread when you do that too. Your thread goes a lot longer if you're chain piecing some things that you're going to be using anyway. Okay, so now I added a strip onto here. I need to see if this is at least 10.5 inches. Yes, it's just a little bit over. But by the time I start it, it's going to be perfect. So have Lauren, she's working on the Morning Star quilt for a church auction. She teaches sewing and quilting class once a month at a church. That's pretty awesome. Jennifer, hi Jennifer. She said she couldn't say hello while she was watching on her phone. I'm trying to get an I Spy quilt finished for my granddaughter. I have so many fabrics for an I Spy quilt. I just need to figure out what design I want. I mean, I can make many, but at least pick one design to get started and make one. So are you using squares, Jennifer? Or did you use like a shape like octagon or tumblers or anything like that? Trying to go back to some pieces I want to finish up. go. I want to see if this bottom is at 11. Yes. So all I need to add is strips to the top. Okay, so because the chats don't stay here, the comments don't stay, I'm just going to read what she says. She says that she's using the Jenny Dome idea with the mason jar shape. And she says it's so cute. I have to go look at that. I haven't seen that. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. And sometimes I'll just sew two of my crumb pieces together. So now I really got this really crazy shape. So I need to see where is it not meeting at 11 inches at least. So I just put 11 out on the edge of this straight side over here. And I'm just going to go down to the point where 11, if it doesn't reach anymore, then I need to add more. It actually works. It looks really crazy, but it works. And I have 11 from top to bottom here. And over here, I have 11 from top to bottom. So now when I square this up, I'm actually going to square this up using these two sides to make it square first. And then I have enough room to cut my remainder piece out on the other side. And then these scraps from here in this area will be used in my next block somewhere. Another little weird shape here. I added a little triangle on the top of this block. I can add another triangle over here, or I can add a few strings, because if I add another triangle over here, you might expect me to add another triangle there. So instead, I'll just put a few strings. I may end up with a triangle in the end, but it's not how it started out. And then about every 10 blocks or so, I'll stop and reorganize my scraps and pieces just so that I'm not getting all out of disorder. So that's that one. I got this piece here that I started out with some vertical strings that could have been in a regular string block, but I don't want to make any more little 6-inch blocks right now. So I'm just going to string this out on each side and then do top and bottom. Let me get a straight line. Find something that I can use. I'm running out of fabric choices. I haven't used the fabric in this block, but I'm just tired of looking at it. Do you have fabric in your stash that you're just tired of looking at? Wish it would go away, but it seems like every quilt I find a piece of it. piece I just threw over here will go right on there. So let's see what's going to be happening. I'm actually going on a retreat that's for card makers, but I'm actually going to be quilting. I went on this same retreat. They have it twice a year. They have one in July. And I told them next time I come, I'm going to make cards. I can't make any cards because I am so far behind schedule on everything that I just need to keep going on the project that I have to get done first. So let's see what I got here. So now I have a little piece, and if I put a little nick right there. So when I measured this now, I could put a little half square triangle along this end, and it would be enough for me to square it up when I got to that point. So I'm just going to do that. Take one of my little bit larger half square triangles, and I'm just going to line it up right on this corner and sew that. So in a little bit, I guess in my next sewing session with these, I will be going to get more fabrics just because I'm tired of looking at the ones that I'm using. Okay. So I added this little strip on here, this half square triangle. And then when I flip that up, it's not covering the entire thing, but I can now just use my ruler and make a straight line through here. And I didn't actually add just a big half square triangle that would have been expected according to the rest of this block. And I don't even know what the height is. Let's do a check. It's about 10 1/4 high. One end of my block is a little low, so I'll just go ahead and square off this top while I'm at it. And we'll add a little strip up at the top. So this is what I have now. So let's measure height again just to make sure. It's a little bit under 10. It's about 9 3/4. I need some different fabrics. Use that. Here's a purple one. We'll use some purple. It may not be wide enough, but I'll just have to add another one. So when it sort of kind of gets to this size, then I just worry about either the top or the bottom or the sides. I don't try to worry about everything. You can go around it if you like, but I'm trying not to make them all look like they're log cabin piece per se. Hi, Jolene. Welcome to my channel and thank you for subscribing. I appreciate that. Let's measure this one. Okay, so now this one is at the height of 11 inches or over 11 inches. And now I just need to square up the side and add something there. Okay, the width of this one is 7.5 inches. So I can actually add a piece to both sides of this one. You don't even have to worry about it to start. I'll even add another piece of this purple since it's laying here. And then I can sew these onto either side. Anybody have any suggestions for future live videos? As I said, I do have favorite rulers for next week unless I get some other suggestions. Now we have that. You can measure it and see if it's 11. Oops. Yeah, so this is at least 10.5. It's not quite 11, but that's good for me. And now we are going to square off this end. We need to add to the sides. Oh my goodness, I've gone over time too. It's 8:21. Are you all sewing or just watching? Okay, the width on this one is approximately, I just go in the middle. It's about a little over 7 inches, so I can add a lot. I got a fat piece here I can add. My blocks are 10 inches, so adding big pieces here and there won't take away from my blocks. And then I use those larger sizes. I'll cut on those sides when I'm squaring up, and then I'll come back and bring any remainder back to my supply. So I don't pitch too much with this technique. And for those that just started, I'll give you another look at my design wall. And maybe I'll go up a little closer to it because we're going to end at 8:30 for sure. So let me just finish sewing the 2 blocks here that I have on my machine, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up. Jennifer says she's definitely in favor of the ruler topic. My ruler table is on order from my dealer, and I'll want to hit the ground running when it gets here. Okay, so if the viewers will share their favorite rulers, I'll share some of the ones that I like, and we can do that. Lauren is asking, do I use my Go Cutter a lot when cutting for quilts? I actually have the Studio Cutter, which is a product of Teaquilts as well as the Go Cutter. And I do use it a lot. Like when I did the Bonnie Hunter mystery quilt that just ended, I cut as many of those pieces that I could with my Go Studio Cutter. So I had a lot of those dies already, but I didn't have dies for like the parallelogram and things like that. But whatever I had a die for, I did cut. That's why I leave my cutting system out so that it's more accessible. I found when I didn't have a dedicated space for it that I didn't use it as much because it was cumbersome to just pull it out. When I do binding strips, I do all of that on my cutter as well. I found I wouldn't cut my binding strips if I didn't have it already set up because I could cut 8 to 10 strips without pulling that out and then having to put it back up. But now that it has a dedicated spot, I go ahead and use it. It's a lot easier. When I cut for Bonnie Hunter's mystery quilt, she had you cutting hundreds of pieces at a time. And long as my fabric was prepped, if it was pressed already, which I did, then it took me about maybe 15 minutes to scrap cut all of those pieces for each shape. For each shape she wanted, it took me about 15 minutes, if that, because it's just a matter of lining it up on the die. So I use it all the time. So this block is still a little bit small. Let's see. Jolene asks, what is your favorite thread to use for quilting? We talked about that in some other videos, but I guess I need to make a dedicated video about threads. I just haven't done it yet. But I actually am I'm trying to unwind it so I can bring it to you. When I'm machine piecing, I use large cone threads just because it's cheaper to buy. When you mass buy something, it's cheaper than buying the small spools that go on your machine, like Guterman, which they now have different spools, but this is your Coats and Clark. And I can't see everything that's in my thread drawer right now. So here's the Coats and Clark on the jumbo spool with the white, and it's just your all-purpose. So I was using a lot of Guterman or Coats and Clark thread, and then I switched to buying a masterpiece thread by Superior Thread. On here, it has 3,000 yards. This is the bisque color, number 152, and it's a 50 weight 2-ply thread. What I use in my bobbins on this Imissimo baby lock machine, it has very little bitty bobbins, very small bobbins, and they run out pretty fast. So on my bobbin winding days, I wind all of my bobbins, and I'm hoping you can see that is not very high at all. So I find that I use in my bobbins so that I can get more thread on them is Arfield's thread. It's also a 50 weight 2-ply. And I just use these. I'm using the number 2310. So any neutral thread I'll use. And then this is what I use to wind my bobbins. But I'm thinking that since I'm using this thread, I could probably use it as well. But I like traveling. When I travel, then I'll take these with me. Sometimes it depends on what I'm doing. But when I'm going to cook, like if it's for a 1-day class, I want to take my whole stand that holds this right here. So I might just take a spool of Arfield to like Scrap Quilting Club. But when I'm going on retreat, I just take everything, the big spool with me on retreat because I'm going to be going through a lot of thread. So that's for piecing. Now, Jolene, did you want to know specifically for quilting or did you want to know for piecing? I'll just go ahead and answer while I wait for your response. But for quilting thread, I use Superior's threads again. I use in the bobbins, I like to use Bottom Line because it's a thinner thread. It is a polyester thread, but it gets a lot more bobbin onto the bobbin. And then for piecing, I use like permacore. And as I'm running out of permacore, I am using, if it's King Tuck. I have to look up that. But I need to do a separate video for just thread so I can refer people there because it has come up in another live video about maybe 3 weeks ago or so. So I'll do a video on that. And Jolene was asking, so I did answer her question. All right, I have lost my wood and iron in here somewhere. It'll come up again when I move the next piece, but I had to do those with my nail. So now we're about at 9.5 for this block, and we're going to go ahead and stop here. I'm going to just show you my design wall, and I'm going to see if I can get closer to it so you can see it. So we unplug the laptop. So here is my fabric. I find that the block can't go with neutral solid fabric setting. I like to keep things interesting, and like here, I know you're watching at one hand, but I've added a very thin frame here. This frame finishes at a 1/2 inch. And then instead of using white fabric or white tone on tone, I actually went to my light fabric stash and found this fabric, and I thought that would be perfect over adding something that was plain and toning down all of my piecing work. I know it looks a little busy, but I don't like something that was very busy and then it's toned down way too much. And then let me just show you some of my blocks that are on the wall. This one here was left over past. I used they've been into the quilt. And then I've got the people fabric top out. Every so often in the blocks at the top. I can't see what you're saying, but I know I'm wobbling on my toes. Yeah. So that's what I'm actually working with. I get lots of questions about the blue and yellow quilt behind me. That's the yellow brick road pattern. It's a pattern. You can search that. It's very easy. It's back quarter friendly. And it doesn't take a lot of fabric either. I think the smallest you can use either 5 to 7 fat quarter. So that's it for this chat. And I thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye, everybody. See you next week. Thank you, Lauren. See you next time.